Jurassic Park Survival is a first-person game. It's set a day after the events of the film. You play as Maya Joshi, who is an engine scientist, and it's your job to survive the island.
So every one of the characters in that film is indelible, and this is the bar that we're shooting for. These characters need to be as specific, distinct, colorful as the characters in the film. And Maya is the biggest example of this.
The actual journey, the arc of Maya, it's incredible. She was personally recruited by Dr. Henry Wu to become an InGen scientist to work at the park. The start of Maya's journey, she's unable to escape. I really relate to Maya in lots of different ways. She's incredibly passionate and adventurous. I think she takes risks. She steps outside of her comfort zone. I feel like I'm learning a lot about myself, to be honest. She's very inspiring, and she has a lot of admirable traits. I think that I'm standing on the shoulders of some of the coolest female characters in cinema history.
I think that's what players really want. They want to be put in the driver's seat of a dinosaur encounter and have to survive it.
Can't wait and come face to face with the T-Rex. I'm gonna purposely lose so that I can get eaten by a T-Rex.
No, honey, no.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You're gonna sell it. Well,
the Jurassic Park franchise has been a box office heavyweight since it first wowed audiences in 1993. But while the level of story substance has diminished with each installment, continuing to drift further and further away from the Crichton-Spielbergian magic of scientifically plausible, thought-provoking wonder towards something akin to Fast and Furious with dinosaurs, the franchise continues to pull big crowds and make big dollars. The box office takes alone sit at roughly $6 billion, which doesn't include merchandising, making it one of, if not the, most profitable IP for Universal Studios. But while the films are all but a guaranteed payout, the video game tie-ins have never found the same success. Despite owning the IP for over 30 years, Universal has seemingly squandered the story potential of Jurassic Park in the gaming medium, remaining fairly wedded to the traditional side-scrolling platformers, top-down explorer shooters and park builders that proved successful for the franchise in the early era of gaming. That's not to say that some of the previous titles haven't had entertainment value, but there is no denying that Universal plays it fairly safe with their releases in terms of known returns of investment, favouring low-cost, low-risk design and simple to non-existent stories, forcing gamers to look elsewhere for their survival horror dinosaur fix. While many gamers from the 2000s found comfort in comfort is probably the wrong word, found solace in Dino Crisis, others took it a step further, developing their own Jurassic Park-inspired indie titles to fill the void. One of these more promising entries from YouTube's own Chronauticon was a PlayStation Dreams project nested within the events of Jurassic Park 93. Unfortunately, the game was slapped with a cease and desist by Universal's lawyers before it could be finished, forcing a rebranding of all intellectual property within the game, which I fully intended to do a follow-up video on but got sidetracked by other projects. But we're here now, sorry for the delay. The reasoning for this rather harsh action was revealed in December of 2023, with Universal announcing their own Jurassic Park 93 era title to be created by Saber Interactive Studios, Jurassic Park Survival. And the similarities between the trailers are, well, striking. Almost like they put this trailer together as a response to the healthy competition. Now, I would never accuse a major Hollywood studio and its gaming counterpart of shady practices, nor heavy-handed copyright tactics.
Bullshit, Wally.
But it got me to thinking, which project would fans rather play? One set during the timeline of the original movie, where we play as a faceless protagonist park ranger, living out the events of the film from a different perspective, or one set in the aftermath where we play as a totally new, fully realised character that was nowhere to be seen during the original movie, with their own story that repeats the nostalgic beats from the film. Again.
that is one big pile of shit.
While I can only speak for myself, and I definitely have bias on this one, the answer is a question of the medium. For the sake of simplicity, let's just say all stories are held up by three pillars: character, plot, and lore. Character is self-explanatory. Unless we're creating a piece of avant-garde cinema about a shopping trolley, most stories will feature at least a protagonist or a principal character. Plot is what happens to that principal character, the focus of the hero's journey through the story against the antagonistic force. Whether that is another character, the forces of nature, or a combination of both, or something else altogether. Lore is everything else, all that which underpins the story, the world, its history, characters and their backstories. We could obviously dive much deeper on all these tenets, but for the sake of brevity and the length of this video, we'll keep it there. Feel free to debate Story 101 nuance in the comments. Stories in games, while sharing the basic pillars of stories in films, are not the same.
Report to the ship as soon as possible. We're bang, okay?
Games can leverage player choice, secondary lore and world building to expand their stories in ways films cannot. But films often have the advantage of focus, both of character and plot, usually at the cost of that expansive lore for the sake of narrative tempo. The point is, both have strengths and weaknesses based on the story being told. For Spielberg's Jurassic Park, the story was equal parts character and plot. Given the movie's high concept, the plot is simple enough. Capitalist venturer John Hammond creates a theme park with cloned dinosaurs on Isla Nublar. But when a storm hits and a disgruntled employee sabotages the park systems, the carnivores escape, forcing paleontologist Alan Grant, Ellie Sadler, and chaos theorist Ian Malcolm, along with Hammond's grandchildren, to survive the unleashed prehistoric predators and escape the island. Within the narrative, there are themes of nature versus technology, chaos and control, all neatly anchored to a character-driven story that sees Alan Grant transform from a man that's not really keen for children to a found father of Lex and Tim. The ending of the film implying that he and Ellie may be ready to start a family of their own. We'll just ignore his character assassination from Jurassic Park 3. Remind me who greenlit that project again.
We want the third movie to be as exciting, if not more so, than the other two.
And ever try to sound like Hammond, it just comes off like a hustle. I mean, it's not your fault. They say talent skips a generation, so, hey, I'm sure your kids are going to be sharp as tacks.
As for lore, well, there's a lot, but it's never the focus of the film. Bioengineering company InGen is in competition with rival company Biogen, hence Nedry sabotage. The dinosaurs are cloned from DNA from fossilized amber, hence Hammond's visit to Grant and Ellie's dig site, from whom he's been buying some of that amber. This is taken from the book. Jurassic Park is supported by investors that grow impatient and concerned, hence the early park tour. Side characters are interesting but have undisclosed backgrounds. The park itself is simply a wonder to behold, and a place we'd all love to visit when fully functional, which is part of the reason Jurassic World proved so popular with real-world audiences in 2015. But this is ancillary information to enable the plot. It cannot be the focus, or it would slow the pace of the film down. However, this is where a game based on Jurassic Park 93 could excel. Rather than focusing on a new character and their internal journey, thus distracting from the lore and world of the park, it could use the original plot and story beats to immerse the player in the film. With an 8 to 10 hour campaign, it could show us more of the park, its processes, people and procedures, without worrying about the pace of a film. More about the competition between InGen and Biogen. More about Wu, Muldoon, Arnold and Dr. Hardy's backstories. Lore couched in a two-dimensional character story that is action-driven rather than a three-dimensional character-focused story that would be better suited to a film. Allowing the player to use their character as an insert to soak up the atmosphere of Jurassic Park alongside the plot of the original film. I appreciate that this sentiment may seem like it flies in the face of the popular counter-argument being the we don't actually care who the hero is so long as it's a good story. But in this instance, it's a matter of creative focus rather than a protagonist-specific problem. I'd still be pissing and whinging about Jurassic Park Survival being set after the fact and being a character-driven story rather than a plot-driven story, regardless of the sex and gender of the protagonist, because I want to experience Jurassic Park 1993 in a next-gen game, not play as some new character whose internal journey is the focus of the narrative, which ultimately pulls focus away from the park. So if yours truly was in charge, that game would look something like this. From the outset, you get a choice as to whether you play as a male or female worker. You might even get to pick your name. You're an employee from Hammond's biological preserve in Kenya and are contacted by your old colleague, Robert Muldoon. He says Hammond's new theme park resort in Costa Rica is weeks from opening. They're not ready, they're short-staffed, and now the old fool has only gone and invited a group of independent experts to come and assess the resort. As a personal favour to him, Muldoon asks you to fly out to the park for a week and help them get ready, promising that Hammond will spare no expense. Unlike the fancy helicopter arrival of the VIP guests, you are flown in via the Jurassic Park airfield, not seen in the film but developed as concept art and repurposed for Jurassic Park 3. Muldoon meets you at the airstrip. You exchange pleasantries the way old friends would, before he asks you to remind him what your specialty was. You then get to pick one of 4 classes: Warden, Technician, Veterinarian, or Scientist. The tutorial mission introduces you to the basic gameplay mechanics during the day as you meet the key staff, drive between locations in the central visitors hub, and conduct odd jobs, initially with Muldoon, who eventually disappears in the afternoon for an important task. Based on your character's class, your dialogue options will be more insightful with specific characters. Talking dinosaur behaviour with Muldoon as he introduces all the species in the park to you that you'll encounter throughout the game, naturally based on the names seen in the film. Discussing computer coding with Arnold and the risks of automation, veterinary science with Dr. Harding, or gene sequencing with Dr. Wu, whom doesn't display any signs at all that he's going to transform into a maniacal scientist in Jurassic World for no apparent reason.
It can camouflage!
What'd you do that for?
Because I'm evil. I can't help it. Sorry.
Your class will also make your character faster at different tasks, resetting terminals, mending fences, treating wounds, or reloading specialist weapons that form the basics of the gameplay. Don't worry, you won't be expressly hindered if you don't go Warden class in terms of gunplay. While the game will be in first person to enhance immersion, it is not exclusively a first person shooter, and we would naturally seek to balance all the opportunities for the different classes. After the meet and greet and learning the basic mechanics, the sun begins to set and Muldoon arrives back at the main compound. He tells you there's no time for small talk and needs your help as a matter of urgency. The tutorial ends where the film begins, moving the Velociraptor into its temporary enclosure and witnessing the untimely death of Joffrey. After the tutorial, the main missions take place alongside the guests for the most part. Act 1 sees you escort them through the herbivore enclosure as the driver, this being the first time you'll see a Brachiosaurus alongside Alan and Ellie, reliving the iconic scene from a different point of view. Perhaps you're this guy. You then work inside the visitor centre as part of the guided tour, doing things like operating the feeding crane at the raptor enclosure, as Grant and the guests watch on. These missions are fairly low drag in terms of action, giving the player more time to access and read terminals and journals, listen to audio files, explore the visitor's compound and interact with Sadler, Grant and Malcolm, as well as other key staff without the risk of death by dinosaur. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of time for that.
That's disgusting.
The next set of missions take you out into the park in your Jeep, moving in parallel to the guest tour to ensure that all runs smoothly, which naturally it doesn't. Almost immediately after the no-show at the Dilophosaurus pen, Muldoon asks you and your team to manually reset the motion trackers. This is normally done when the dinosaurs are removed to a temporary enclosure that is currently occupied by the raptors. Despite the risk, Hammond is insistent that this be done as a matter of priority so that the guests can see the dinosaurs on the return trip. After all, the fate of the park is riding on this tour. I like the idea that the game could show us a little bit more of the capitalist side of Hammond that we only get glimpses of in the film, and is a much more prominent trait in the novel. Not that we would want to undermine the naive idealism that is so central to Richard Attenborough's performance. This section puts you into the enclosure, armed with a stun rod as you endeavour to avoid toxic spit and evisceration, giving the player the first real brush with danger and the possibility of death.
Thought you were one of your big brothers. You're not so bad. You're not so bad.
This mission also introduces the heal mechanic as one of the staff is injured during the process. After resetting the motion trackers, you're then required to attend the medium herbivore pen, where Stegosaurus have become unruly, seemingly due to the approaching storm, attacking the fences and causing chaos. You and your team use the Jeep and stun rods to herd the Stegos away, repair the fences, which eventually leads to the encounter with the sick Triceratops and the principal guests. It's then up to you to escort the principals through the pen, discouraging the curious creatures, namely compies but also larger herbivores that try to get too close to Ellie as she conducts her botanic investigation. Once this is complete, the storm rolls in and you receive a radio message from Muldoon. He tells you that they're cutting the tour short, but there's still a chance for the guests quest to see the T-Rex, and that he needs you to lure the star of the park towards the front of her enclosure. As the storm rolls in and the sun sets, you enter the Rex paddock. To make your job easier, you can reset the motion trackers as a secondary objective, having learned this during the Dilophosaurus encounter. This will allow Arnold to warn you when the Rex is in proximity, but your main mission is to avoid instant death from ambush attacks and then lure the Rex towards the main road with flares, introducing the distract with flare mechanic. You don't participate in the iconic Rex escape, as we don't want to harpoon the film in terms of retcons. But don't worry, you'll get your T-Rex moment in due course. Instead, after herding the Rex in the right direction, you begin to make your way back to the visitor centre before nearly being run off the road by another Jurassic Jeep, moving at speed towards the east dock. I wonder who that could have been. It is at this point that your character realises that the power to the fences has gone out. Concerned, you drive straight towards the closest carnivore pen, only to find the Metracanthosaurus breaking free from its paddock. This is your own breakout moment, where you use stun rods to subdue the predator and flares to lure it back into its pen, repairing the fence, for what little good it'll do with no power being run to it. After deterring the Metracanthosaurus, you drive back to the visitor centre, ending Act 1. You return to the control centre as Muldoon leaves to collect Hammond's grandchildren. You turn back to Hammond as Arnold speaks.
I can't get Jurassic Park back online without Dennis Nedry.
After this iconic exchange from the film, you inform Hammond that you saw another vehicle heading east, concluding that given all staff have already departed, it must have been Nedry. Hammond then tasks you to bring him back as a priority, but Arnold also gives you a number of side missions to conduct. Check the status of fences, reset motion trackers, heal wounded herbivores, and trank and tag loose carnivores. At which point, you unlock the tranquilizer rifle. Act 2 becomes more open world, giving you freedom to move around the park in your Jeep and conduct side missions at each location in whatever order you choose. All of them accumulating upgrade points for your vehicle, equipment, and weapons. The more you do now, the easier Act 4 and Act 5 will be. As you move through the park, you begin to find herbivores with laceration injuries. Your character notes that the wounds are too large to have been from compies or Proceratosaurus, but are too small to have come from the larger predators. However, the encounter is then interrupted by stampeding Triceratops, which eventually channel your player to the location of Nedry's Jeep. After finding Nedry, or what's left of his body, you begin to make your way back to the visitor centre to report the bad news. But remember the iconic T-Rex chase? Remember how it exits stage left at the end of the scene? Guess what road you're on when it turns right. Now you have your own little encounter with the T-Rex at full speed as it chases you away from the visitors centre and deeper into the island. The chase reveals that your tranquilizer is useless against this larger apex predator, but you eventually escape before crashing your vehicle. Being too far for the visitors centre to track back on foot and being out of VHF radio range, your character decides to head to the aviary to use the HF radio tower on the Island Mountains summit. The T-Rex being loose is a big deal and Arnold must be informed immediately. The radio tower is your only option. While Alan and the children rest safely in their tree, removed from the relative safety of your vehicle, you must rely on your wits and the tranquilizer rifle to avoid predators such as the Proceratosaurus, including potential instant kill ambushes from the T-Rex, as you make your way towards the HF radio tower. You are given two pathing options. Firstly, the mountain trail. It will take longer to reach the summit, but avoids the danger of the aviary. The T-Rex, however, will continue to stalk you through the jungle. The second, take a shortcut through the aviary, using the stairs to climb the mountain. It's faster, but puts you at risk of pterosaur attack. The steel bars, however, will prevent the T-Rex from following you. Not that it will stop the baryonyx from swimming into the aviary lagoon, which will attempt to kill you if the pterosaurs knock you off the walkway and into the water. While not an instant kill like the T-Rex ambush, both avenues have their dangers. Regardless of the route you take, your attempt to reset the radio tower will be unsuccessful, as you arrive to find that compies have eaten through the electronics of the array. Naturally. But you don't have time to mope, as you are once again attacked by the Metracanthosaurus, which will chase you to the river. You then use a boat to escape during a scripted on-rail sequence where the Metracanthosaurus and Dilophosaurs attempt to rip you from the boat. But you eventually escape, unfortunately damaging your outboard motor in the process, drifting out of the dense jungle river and into an expansive lake as the sun begins to rise.
This is just like that movie.
Lifted straight from the book, you now get to panic stroke your way away from the T-Rex as it stalks you across the lake, with some good old-fashioned Capcom-inspired button-mashing horror for good measure. After reaching the far side of the lake, you descend into rapid-flowing waters, which lead into a hydro plant used for cooling the park's power generator. So you're safe from the T-Rex now, right?
I don't think so.
As an homage to Dino Crisis, and also taken from the Lost World and Jurassic Park novel, the T-Rex's head bursts through a column of water and threatens to kill you in place. You manage to fend it off and come to rest at the end of the hydro plant, adjacent to a maintenance facility that overlooks the valley below, where you find another Jeep and make ready for Act 4. Once again, you are given more or less free roam in the open world to conduct several story tasks, collect trophies and find Easter eggs, like the tour car crashed at the base of the tree, or the T-Rex stalking Alan and the kids in the distance, as well as upgrade your stats before making your way back to the visitor centre to report the death of Nedry, the escape of the Metracanthosaurus, Baryonyx and T-Rex, as well as the inoperability of the HF radio antenna. Hammond is horrified. Things are rapidly getting out of control, leading to this scene from the film.
We'll never find the command that Nedry used. He's covered his tracks far too well. And I think it's obvious now that he's not coming back.
He then nods to the player, as it was you who has confirmed this fact. After Hammond's speech about resetting the park systems, Muldoon pulls you aside. He tells you that in the game warden office, down by the Rex paddock, he has cached a number of lethal dart rifles and an RPG, explaining that he never fully embraced the electronic safety revolution, particularly where prehistoric apex predators are concerned. He says he's going to escort the good doctors and Hammond down to the security bunker, where he has some small arms stored, but he needs you to run out and grab the bigger, lethal weapons. Damn what Hammond says, the whole park venture will be for nothing if everyone becomes dinosaur chow. You then go out into the park again, stalked by the larger predators of the Metracanthosaurus and Baryonyx as you drive to the warden office. Once you arrive and collect the weapons, the power comes back on, including the motion sensor trackers in the station office, which reveal several red dots approaching your position. Raptors leap through the window and you're forced to flee into the nearby maintenance tunnels, once again leaving your Jeep behind. You're then forced into a claustrophobic, dismounted, jump scare heavy tunnel section, where you're permitted to use the lethal darts against the raptors. After killing 3, however, you're alarmed to find that there are still more. Eventually, you move into the open area of the underground reactor and find that there are dozens of raptor nests. They've been breeding under the park the entire time, hidden underground and out of range of the motion detectors. Once again, this is taken from Crichton's novel, which explains the wounds on the deceased Parasaurolophus.
Raptor.
Your task is now to seal the tunnel doors while pursued by protective raptor parents and trap these creatures underground, closing 6 entrances before fleeing by ladder out the emergency escape hatch. You then return to your vehicle and cutscene your way back to the emergency bunker. You arrive and report your findings to Hammond, whom is once again shocked, unable to comprehend what you're saying. He moves to Malcolm, busying himself with the blanket when the phone rings.
Crown? Mr. Hammond? The phones are working. Children all right?
The children are fine.
Call the mainland. Tell them to send the damn helicopters.
It's gonna come through the glass!
You're then given a choice. Help Hammond move Malcolm to the vehicle and go and save Alan and the kids, or go look for Muldoon and destroy the raptor nest. Option 1 places you in proximity to the dramatic finale of the film, but first you take an M16 from the bunker and escort Hammond and Malcolm to the vehicle depot, defending them from Proceratosaurus. Once Malcolm is in the Jeep, you then follow Hammond in your own Jeep as you drive towards the visitor centre, but are set upon by the Baryonyx.
You again? Persistent thing, aren't you?
You attempt to lure the predator away from Hammond and Malcolm, taking a different path that is now flooded from the night storm. The Baryonyx follows you into a low creek, where your vehicle becomes bogged. Naturally out of ammo, and having left your RPG in the bunker to help move in, you're at the mercy of nature when a cutscene occurs. The T-Rex ambushes the Baryonyx through the trees, cleaving its head from its body in one powerful bite. Your character then fires a flare from your Jeep, leading the Rex towards the visitor centre, where it finds the raptors about to kill the film's heroes and saves the day. You then reunite with Hammond and the others and follow him to the heliport. You then escape alongside the principal guests, looking back at them from the co-pilot seat of the helicopter. Achievement unlocked. third wheeling since 1993. Option 2 deviates from the film. You leave Hammond and Malcolm to go find Muldoon. Unfortunately, all you find is what's left of his body, but more importantly, his shotgun, which you then use on the raptor in the maintenance shed as you descend into the generator room to destroy the raptor nest, using the RPG to rupture the fuel lines and light a fire in the room. You're then pursued by raptors as you flee the burning building, and once you're topside, you are then stalked by the Metrocanthosaurus.
Back for more.
As you find your jeep and drive towards the east dock. As you arrive at the port, the Metrocanthosaurus flips your jeep and you lose your weapons. You must then use the dock's crane to lower one of the Zodiac boats into the water to escape, using the cased flares to distract the predator as you do so. After getting the boat in the water, at the last moment, you stumble. As the dinosaur's jaws bear down on you, the T-Rex appears, in Dinosaur Ex Machina, biting down on the smaller predator in classic Jurassic Park 1993 irony, allowing you to escape via the Zodiac boat and setting out into the early morning sun. Achievement unlocked. They should all be destroyed. Yes, I know the T-Rex saving the day is now cliche thanks to the Jurassic World movies, but I don't think a game based on Jurassic Park 93 would be complete without it. And it wouldn't make sense for you to be in the room with Ellen, Ellie and the kids when the T-Rex saves the day. So this is what you get. As for replayability, you can try New Game Plus, where you go through the story again with upgraded stats, as the opposite sex and as a different class, with the dialogue differing accordingly. You can then also make different choices in Acts 3 and 5. Perhaps there is a way to destroy the nest and help Hammond at the same time. Wow, secret third ending.
How's this on? Can you hear me? It's on. Hello. If you can hear me, congratulations. Way to go. You made it through. You spent all that time, and now you're done. You did it. That's quite an achievement. My gosh, you looked a 20-foot carnivore right in the eye, and you've lived to tell about it. Well, you are something.
Also, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense that the game should be played as a duo, meaning whichever character you choose, your counterpart will accompany you throughout the campaign, driving vehicles and whatnot. I realise this makes the game potentially less scary as you won't be alone, but it would allow for more dialogue exchanges, and it makes more sense sending two people into the park rather than sending a lone person, given the dangers. Perhaps you could even play the game cooperatively, with puzzles changing depending on whether it's a single or two-player endeavour. Regardless, I feel the game I've just proposed better fits the bill in terms of a game based on Jurassic Park 93 that many older fans are hoping for. I can only speak for myself on this one, but I'd much rather be a spectator to the events of the movie with a little character development as a player, rather than being force-fed a new character's story that is set after the fact. A character that doesn't even interact with any of the iconic cast from the film, whose story would detract from the reason many players pick up a game based on Jurassic Park 93 in the first place. Who is Naya? I don't really care, the same way I didn't care who Jason was in Far Cry 3, nor for his constant whinging about how no one in the game understood him.
We have to talk. We will, just not now. I need to find Riley. If anything happens to that kid...
I miss you. Okay? And you're carrying all these weapons and you have all these weird tattoos. And...
Lisa, don't worry. I'm taking control of my life for the first time.
I know,
That's
you're
a
right.
good thing.
I've been working really hard on that, and I have a studio job waiting for you. I helped Steve.
Oh, look, I don't want to talk about your exes right now.
We're going to stand around here all day? Or are we going to fight?
As I said earlier, it's a question of focus, and in the case of a Jurassic Park 93 game, I think plot and lore are more important than character. You are never going to trump the Spielberg-Crichton characters from the film, so don't try. But what you can do is give the player plenty of plot-driven action, and bundles of lore to keep them interested. Regardless, I think Universal will find that Maya is going to be a hard sell if she's the focus at the cost of the park in a next-generation Jurassic Park game, regardless of how closely she may resemble a certain jewellery maker.
Hi, I'm Mia Khalifa. I'm from Lebanon. What do you do for a living? I am a jewellery designer.
But what are your thoughts, Skipper? Would you play the Working Jellyfish's Jurassic Park Survival? How would you set about making a game based on Jurassic Park 93? Do you have hope for Jurassic Park Survival based on what we've seen? Should I do a similar video for The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3? Let me know in the comments. Also, please check out Chronauticans and Ali Awada's channels. They've got some absolutely outstanding Jurassic content, some of which I've leveraged in this video. But remember, I'm just a brainless lump, hoping Universal and Saber don't fumble the opportunity they've been given. So until next time, hooroo, mate.